Well, today on Game Trivia, we'll be taking a look at a Sega Saturn title, essentially a Doom clone called Robotica, or also known as Daedalus or Daedalus in Japan, but it's a Doom clone with a twist.
In the year 2077, the regional nation-state that had until then helped maintain world order on Earth collapsed, and in its wake, a planetary government emerged to rule over mankind. To resolve the disputes, riots, and struggles that periodically erupted around the globe, WSSS was formed, separate from regular government organizations. A core system for planetary control was established, not on Earth, but in space. It was referred to as the WSSS Central Control Fortress, Daedalus. After Daedalus was established, mankind lived in peace for 800 years. The global state system had been designed to unify mankind, but eventually, all those who could explain the original reason for its existence had disappeared. People's views of it now began to change. Some started to worship Daedalus. Others began to protest the notion of living under the restrictions of what they saw as an increasingly archaic system. Clashes began to occur with increasing frequency between these two groups, with Daedalus repeatedly trying to suppress them. On the surface, these were but minor conflicts. Underground terrorists from the reformist faction were arming and steadily growing in strength. Their first operation will be an attempt to destroy Daedalus itself.
So this is it, guys. This is Daedalus, aka Robotica, for the Sega Saturn from 1995. Now, yeah, I generalised it as a Doom clone pretty much just because most FPSs in that sort of time essentially were jumping on the FPS Doom clone bandwagon. And when I mean that, I mean literally just a pseudo 3D kind of looking FPS where you collect keys to then make you basically progress. Now the difference with Robotica straight off the back is the levels are actually auto-generated. These actually change every single time you actually start the game. So when you start the game, the levels are never exactly the same. So that in itself, being auto-generated, is a real cool thing that virtually no FPSs at the time, let alone now, ever did or do now. Now this title does actually boast 30 levels in total, at which point you will make yourself or make your way to the core of the ship, blow up the core, and then end the war. Now, you know, the real issue with this game, straight off the bat, is the murky, kind of dark looking, I don't know how I really put it, it's not a pretty looking game. Yeah, there's elements of colour here and there, but pretty much everywhere you're going, to me, feels like it's exactly the same. There's nothing to really differentiate where you actually are or where you're actually going. It just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really use the imagination all that much. Don't get me wrong, it is meant to almost be a dark dystopian future, so yeah, I kind of get it there. It is setting the kind of scene, and it obviously does that. But when you're looking for doors, and a lot of the time you can't see them because they actually do blend in, that is where it becomes an issue. Now you do have a map, as you can see at the top left of the screen in the sort of green box, so that does show you where you've been and where you are going. But obviously if you haven't discovered a certain area, it won't show up on the map, which is great because it means as you go further, it maps out your journey. So that's cool, but like I said, you probably will find yourself going round and round in circles, and like I said, you can't even use memorization because the levels are auto-generated. So yeah, they're cool, they're different every time, but it does mean you can't plan with a game like this. Yeah, the essence is grab a key, then as it says, make your way to the gate to then essentially exit the level. The weird thing is, at one point I found a key, and then the exit door was right where the key was. So the auto-generate does work, but it does feel like it doesn't really, I don't know, there seems to be no limit as to where the key is based, etc. There's no sort of rule standard set there. For me, that's a bit strange when you're playing a game where the levels are auto-generated, where you've got to find a key. You'd think it would at least make it a little bit difficult. I mean, for me, the enemies here, they're all, again, very generic. Actually, I joke. They actually look pretty cool, but they are pretty sluggish. And, to be fair, they're not that hard to beat on easy. It's not a really, really hard game. So, at the end of the day, you could probably complete this within 2-3 hours. So it's not a massive long game. But the reason I want to show it is because, first of all, I had never even heard of it. I just saw it on eBay and I was like, what? Never heard of Robotica before. And it's an FPS. Count me in. Now, yeah, there are some cool visuals here, like when you get hit, it kind of does a kind of little static. I like that. I actually think that is a nice little element to this. It does show that you are essentially a robot, which I quite like. I think that is quite cool. Now, obviously, you do also come across these like auto map terminals. So when you do come across them, make sure to click on them, because that then actually fills out your entire game map. So then you kind of know where you're actually going, even if you haven't been in that area already. The other thing is the map is, generated a load of health packs, a load of gun shells, etc. And to be fair, I gotta say, it has a nice-ish amount of weapons at your disposal. Let's take a look. And yeah, the Vulcan sort of pistol is actually pretty good, and to be fair, takes down most enemies without really any fuss. You do have the laser as well. You also have the missile launcher, and also you can use your robotic arm on the left to punch, although it feels like the punch doesn't actually do all that much. If it was me, stick with the Vulcan. Obviously, you can level it up, so that is great as well. And to be fair, there's a fair amount of ammo for it, so you won't run out all that quick. Laser's pretty cool, seems to finish them off pretty damn quick, so that's great. But yeah, I kind of like the Vulcan. It just feels like the pistol that you'd have in Doom. It feels like it's equivalent, and I'm okay with that. Now, what I would say is some of the levels can be a little bit too dark. Now, I'm pretty sure the draw distance being that bad is more kind of because the game does slow down. When there's a lot going along on the screen, the game does slow down, but I actually can kind of forgive it. But what I will also say is when it is dark, below the main map on the left, you'll see a smaller map, which is kind of showing enemies in your vicinity. They show up as red dots. So I kind of use that when I go into a dark room, because then, at the end of the day, it does mean that you're going to be able to spot them that much easier and quicker. Because otherwise, you will take on damage quite quickly. Now, in regards to damage, you can also top up your health as well by pressing the A button, as long as you've got replenishments there to use, that is. If you haven't, you won't be able to up your shield. But if you have, then press it, and you'll be able to up your shield, top it up again, which is great. Nice bit of self-healing. Who doesn't love that? Another thing that this game really seems to boast is it has some real decent FMVs. I think it does really well at this. A lot of these games didn't really do FMVs that well, but as you're about to see, it chucks them in here, and now it kind of sets the tone of the game a little bit more. I love FMVs. I do miss them, and it's a shame they're not really prominent in games as much now. But as you can see, definitely sets the tone of the game. Now, you're probably saying to me, well, why do I want to get Robotica on the Sega Dreamcast? Now, I think technically, it just shows off how good this looks. To me, it almost looks a little bit like Alien Trilogy in its style. Its darkness and just kind of its all, around tone. Yeah, the music's very, very dreary, though. I will say that. The music's dreary, doesn't really change all that much, and when it does, it really isn't much more exciting than the last one. And the music sticks around for a few levels at a time. So really, I'm not a big fan of that. But as you can see, like I said, when you're in a room that is so damn dark that you can't see anything, and you're literally spending the whole level looking for a light, yeah, it's not an easy game to get into. I did have fun playing it, I'm not going to lie. But, for the guys out there who are just collecting FPSs, I'd say get it. For those of you just interested, maybe just emulate it. Personally, though, I did pick it up for, a tenner? Not even sure it was even a tenner. So for, a physical release of an FPS on the Sega Saturn, I'm always going to pick it up at that sort of price. And to be fair, maybe you should too, because at the end of the day, the Saturn library isn't exactly massive, and there are some certainly interesting titles there, and this is one of them. Anyway, I hope you've liked this nice little look at Robotica for the Sega Saturn. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. I'll leave you with a little bit more footage of Robotica for the Sega Saturn.